Hi guys, John here again with another video. This time I'm talking to Michael Paul, and it's a very interesting story. I heard a little bit of it yesterday on a video he shared a link with me to me without yesterday, and I really am looking forward to hearing more uh, about him and from him and what have you. So, Michael, do you want to tell us a bit about yourself? If that's okay.
Okay, well, I come from Essex in the UK, and I'm an ex nightclub and mobile DJ, and I went into radio presenting, and I'm now doing voiceovers for a living. Um, it all started really with my best friend. I used to work in Hollywoods in Romford. This is around about the 90s, and my best friend, his name was Russell Aylett, and he he didn't really like me when he first met me. He's a good judge of character, if you ask me. But he didn't like me when he first met me, and we gradually started talking to each other, and we got to know each other, and we had a link. There was a link between me and him that was I didn't have with anybody else. He only had to look at me, and I knew what he was thinking, and he knew what I was thinking, and the other person would go about and do that thing without saying a word between the two of us. It was a bit of a strange link. Well, he he worked with me in Hollywoods, and then he left for Spain. He went to live with his mother in Spain. And after 12 years, he came back to the country, and he didn't have anywhere to live. So I put him up for, I think it was about a week. I put him up for a week, and then we were going round, coming up to the end of that week, we were going round and looking for places for him to stay. And the first place wasn't really nice. They were all bed sits, so that wasn't particularly big. It wasn't really nice. And while we was there, we had a phone call from the second place asking us if we could make it slightly earlier. So we swapped places two and three around. So we went to the second bed sit, which should have been number three, and that wasn't very nice either. So we moved on to the third bed sit, which was originally number two, and that wasn't particularly nice. And as he came out, so I said, "So what are you going to do, Russ?" As he came out the door, he pointed to the YMCA, which was almost directly opposite. He went, "Here, let's try there." So I went into the YMCA, and I got such a bad feeling in the pit of my stomach. Um, Now, being a club DJ, I could put doorman into positions because I felt a bad atmosphere in the pit of my stomach. So having these feelings was nothing new to me, but I was a very material person. It was, if I couldn't pick it up and hold it, it didn't exist as far as I was concerned. And so I went, yeah, okay. So we went in, and I got this bad feeling, and I'm looking around, and I'm looking at the people just looking at me. I'm thinking to myself, this is not nice. So I had an expensive watch at the time. I pushed the watch up my wrist because I didn't want to be jumped. It's typical things you do when you feel like things are not quite right somewhere. We went up, had a look at the room. It was on the sixth floor. We turned left out the lift, and it was one of the doors on the left-hand side. And it was a basic room, but it was clean. It was tidy. And they wanted, I think it was 100 or 115 pounds, something like that. So Russ took the room, and then he started staying there. And I had a phone call that weekend from an agent asking me if I could do a gig in Birmingham on the Wednesday night and Thursday night. So I said, yeah, I'll do that. So on the Wednesday afternoon, I called up Russ, and we had a little chat, and he heard a knock on the door, and he said, I've got to go, someone's at the door. I didn't know it at the time, but that they were the people that would end up killing him.
Mm-hmm.
So he went to answer the door, and to put the phone down. And on the Friday, I had another phone call from a female friend that used to work with us in Hollywood. She said, "I'm trying to get hold of Russ, but we can't we can't find him anywhere." So I went, "Well, I'll have it." So I called him. Hello, I used to call him Brussel. "Come on, Brussel, where are you? Don't start hiding from us." On the Saturday morning, I had a phone call from the YMCA, and the fella in there said, "Hello, is that Mr. Paul?" So I said, "Yes." He said, "We're looking for Russell because his week's up, and we need the next week's money." So I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, we're trying to get hold of him ourselves." I said, "Have a look in his room to see if his passport's there, because if his passport's there, I'll give him another couple of days and then I'll report him missing. I said, but if his passport's gone, I would say because he couldn't find any work, he's gone back to Spain, because he was a little bit flighty like that, to be honest with you. So I got a phone call again. He put the phone down. I got a phone call again a couple of hours later. Hello, is that Mr. Paul? So I said, yes, speaking. It's the YMCA. And we want to know if you know where Russell is. So I said, well, we've just had this conversation a couple of hours ago. Did you go to his room? No, I didn't. I said, look, go into his room and have a look, see if his passport's there. I said, if you want, because I wondered whether they will be too concerned going through someone else's belongings. And to be honest with you, Russ wouldn't want anyone else to go through his belongings. So I said, if you want, I'll come with you and we'll go through the stuff together and we'll try and find his passport. No. That's all right. That's no problem. I now know that was the police. So it came round to the Saturday evening and all of a sudden the phone rings. I said, hello. He went, why aren't you answering the door? Sorry? What are you talking about? What door? Where? So I've gone to the side window because I was on the first floor flat. I've opened the curtains and I see two people in suits standing there. Okay, all right, hang on, I'm coming down, mate. So I went down. One of the policemen he said, it was, I can't remember, Romford CID or Dagenham and Barking, something like that. But he went, police, and tried to push his way past. So I stood me ground and we ended up chest to chest. Then he backed off, got his warrant card out. The other policeman got his warrant card out, and then one of them motioned to the side, and a WPC in uniform came out. So I said, oh, all right, come in. He said, it's about Russell Aylett. So I said, what's the matter? He said, can we go upstairs and talk first? So we was halfway up the stairs. So I went, come on, what's he done now? What's the pillock done now? I think was my exact words. Got to the top of the stairs, and he said, we've found a body. Well, I can't even begin to tell you the emotions I went through. It was, I'm still quite shocked, even to this day. I mean, this was 17 years ago now, but it still upsets me to think of it. They sat and had a chat with me, and a WPC came in and said, do you need me? And he went, no, we don't need you anymore. He said, we might ask you to come in and make a statement. So I said, yeah, all right. He said, oh, by the way, have you got anybody that can verify where you were? So I said, it's about 250 people at the two gigs that I've done. I can give you the agent's number. The agent can give you the sound and lighting crew's number. He went, oh, okay, all right. He never did ask for the agent's number. So anyway, I had to go and ID the body the next morning, and he'd been laying there for 3 days. I found out that they'd killed him on the Wednesday night, and they'd just put him in the wardrobe. All this is still online, so you can read about this. So 2 years, a year and a half later, I'm just basically settling it down, because it takes you a long while to get over something like that. And I'm taking promotional pictures of where I were, a nightclub DJ at the time, of the club, and getting people to take of me working, and I'm getting these little round circles of light turn up. So I've never had this before. So the more pictures I'm taking over about a 2 or 3 week span, the more of these orbs, I looked it up online, they said they were orbs, the more of these orbs that were there. So I went to a friend of mine who's heavily into his photography and buys very expensive cameras. And I said, John, I'm getting these orbs in pictures. I showed him some of the pictures. He went, no, that's dust on the back of the lens. So I said, yeah, but I tried 2 different cameras. No, it's all nonsense. Come on in my front room here. So we went in his front room. He's taken thousands of pictures in his front room, because he takes them of animals on the side with a lamp over them, and close up of mice's face, and bits and pieces like that. So I said, all right, I'll stand up against the wall, take 3 flash on, 3 flash off, and we'll see what happens. He went, nothing's going to happen. Stand up against that wall, though, and he went, click, 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 3 flash off, click, 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 3 flash on. Went back to his computer, and he's put the SD card in his computer, and the first picture came up. Nothing. He said, I told you, there's not going to be anything on here apart from you. Second picture came up, nothing. Third picture came up, and there was about a dozen orbs or so in the picture. And he went, hold it. Looked at another picture after that. There was the same amount of orbs. And another picture, same amount of orbs again. And he's going, this ain't the camera. It's a brand new camera. This isn't my front room. I've got thousands of pictures I've taken. Whatever this is, it's you. Now, he's a very logical person, John. So for him to say something like that something has shook him. And he said, it's around you. So I said, well, I was going on, at the time, I was going on little winter weekend breaks to different towns. I went to Florence and to go into the Uffizi and look at the Birth of Venus by Botticelli. And I said, well, I can do it at will now. I can ask for them and they turn up. And if I ask for them not to be there, they're not there. And he's going, no, there's something going on here. He was still very, very skeptical, as I was, because I was very material. So the reason I was going to these little weekend breaks was because the Da Vinci Code was out at the time, and I was looking at the works of art that was mentioned in the Da Vinci Code to see whether there was codes in them. And at the time, I was looking at all these codes, and I found out there are codes in them, but they're only codes because we don't understand the artist. They're not codes as in it's written in there. So I then started researching the artists like Botticelli and Leonardo da Vinci. Da Vinci was a genius, an absolute genius. And I was going around looking at all these different works of arts and in sifting out what I could see in them. And all the codes in them that were supposed codes were pagan, very, very pagan. So the Da Vinci Code got my appetite up for this whole subject. So I started researching the birth of Christ and the typical biblical scene that you see of a baby in an animal feeding trough and the three kings and, the virgin birth and all the rest of it. And the story I was getting back after researching it wasn't the story that we've been told. And all this time I'm having a huge amount of synchronistic events. Just in case you don't know what a synchronistic event is, it's two events that happen in the same space and time to create a meaningful answer, a meaningful outcome. So you'll hear the radio presenter say when you're getting up in the morning, and I was speaking to Julie this afternoon, and you go, oh, I know a Julie. Then all of a sudden Julie rings. That's a synchronistic event. People just write them off as coincidence. But after 17 years of research, there is no such thing as a coincidence. These things are meant to guide you. And during my research, I stumbled across a guy that he wrote in a diary, a few diaries, all the synchronistic events that were going on in his life. And then he had 2 diaries full. He sat down with a cup of coffee. He went back and he started reading again. And he said, I know where I am now. So looking back, I can tell whether that had any effect. And he said, it was the strangest feeling I got. I thought I was starring in a film about me and I didn't know the script. These events were guiding him through life, putting him into separate positions. So, as soon as I read that, I went, no, that's nonsense. That's absolute nonsense. But it's not. This is actually happening. And some of the synchronistic events are so small, we just write them off. And even Carl Jung, who coined the phrase synchronistic event, he started writing them off. He done 5.5 years of research, and he came to the conclusion that it's your mind that's making this happen. Now, that sounds equally stupid, but he's a very, very, very intelligent man. But these events carried on. So I ended up with a huge amount of knowledge because of the research. I went into the Knights Templar, the Crusades, what they were digging under the mount to find, what they found under the mount. Just loads of stuff, loads of information. It took me, I've created a podcast out of this, and I thought I'd be talking for an hour, and it ended up 7 hours of speech. So I cut it into 20-minute segments because it's a lot of information in there, huge amount of information. And that's led me to this point where I am now, where I totally accept this alternate place is there. And And I've even found specific drugs, biblical drugs, that were used to push people into this place. And a ritual called the ritual of the twice born, where every Egyptian king went through this ritual to become a pharaoh, because there's a difference between a king and a pharaoh. I even joined Freemasonry to take part in the rituals. I didn't know it at the time. I'd read the rituals, I understood the rituals, then I kept asking, it was 3 times in 1 month, separate people, would I like to join a Freemason lodge? And I said, no. The second one, no. And I call these nudges now. And the third one, I said, yeah, go on then. So it was quite a close friend of mine that got me in. And I ended up over the next 3 or 4 years taking part in the ritual that I'd just read about. And it was really weird. And again, another synchronistic event.
No. So are you still in the Freemasons now, or?
No, I left the Freemasons around about 11 years ago now,
Yeah.
because 10 years ago, because my son was getting age, had been born, and my wife needed help home here. So I stopped going to the Freemasons lodge. But back when I was quite wet behind the ears, I went to see, after John told me about the orbs, it was centered around me. I went to see a medium. The medium's name is Lorraine Reese. Fantastic medium. She is, in my opinion, the real McCoy, 100%. And I had the pleasure of rubbing shoulders with 3 mediums at that time. I've rubbed shoulders with loads more now, but they were all the real McCoy. And Lorraine said to me on the first reading, I've got your friend here. So I said, oh, have you? Being, I'm still quite a material person.
Yeah.
So I said, oh, have you? She went, yes. He's telling me to tell you that you are his best friend. So I said, all right, okay, all right then. And still didn't think, because there's nothing there. You can't draw any conclusions out of that. And she said, he's telling me to tell you angels exist. Now, when I was knocking about with Russ, we used to leave Hollywood's on a Wednesday or Thursday night, and he used to have a flat just down the road, a 5-minute walk. So we used to go around his flat, and we used to drink tea and coffee until the sun was coming up. And because neither of us had day jobs, you work in the club was our full-time job, and we used to go into the cafe to have a breakfast. Well, one night he was playing cards all on his own, like just messing about with the cards. And he said, look at this, look, if I lay 4 cards down, he said, I'd do it like this. And he used to do a special, very strange, touchy thing on them. It was very weird. Twist his finger on the cards like this. And he said, if I turn the cards over, it's either a positive or a negative. So 4 red cards would be a positive, 4 black cards would be a positive, 3 4s and 1 2 would be a positive, because there's 3. But if you had a red card, black card, red card, black card, that would be a negative. It's not a distinct pattern. Or if you had all different numbers, it wasn't a distinct pattern. So that would be a no. And we found out that if we asked a question, a control question, ones we knew the answers to, he'd laid the cards down and then turn them over, and it would give the right answer. Now, I know there's a 50-50 chance there it's going to be right or wrong, but it was coming out 80, 90% the correct answer. So we then asked it not controlled questions, some we didn't know the answers to, and over the next 2 or 3 weeks, we found out that the answers that the cards had given was right. That was how it turned out. Well, at the same time as this, we were just chatting between us, and he's going, I wonder if there is an afterlife, and he's dealing the cards. I'm going, I don't know. Well, no, I don't suppose we'll ever know until one of us passes. He said, all right, if one of us passes before the other one, you've got to come back and tell us whether angels exist.
Oh, wow.
And when Lorraine said, he's telling me to tell you angels exist, I went, whoa. It's like, well, I can't class that as a password.
Yeah.
He said something that it was right out of the blue. I know angels and medium, the subject matter is the same, but it was so direct. So at that point, I started listening to Lorraine a lot more, and she told me that I was going to be offered a part in a film. I'm going to be contacted by somebody I haven't seen for 20 years and offered a part in a film, local film. So I said, and I had the tape up until recently, up until about 6 months ago. I can't find it now. I went, yeah, of course, because I'm Romford's answer to Brad Pitt, and I. Like this. So she went, no, I'm serious. You're going to, all right, yeah. So it all come to an end, the reading. And 2 weeks later, I was driving to work on a Friday night. I was going down the A127 towards Southend. And I'm in a van. All of a sudden, my phone rings. So I've pulled over in a little lay-by, and I've answered the phone. Hello? He said, hello, is that Mike? So I said, yeah, speaking. Hello, Mike, this is Steve. I said, no, Steve who? Who? I don't know any Steves at the moment, to my knowledge. He said, we worked together for 20 years ago. So I went, oh. And it was all the goosebumps on the back of my neck stood up. And he said, listen, I've got to ask you something. And I kept going. In the back of my head, I'm going, he's going to say it. He's going to say it. I know he's going to say it. So he said, how'd you fancy doing a part in a film? Because they needed a radio presenter at the time, and I was working on quite a large station. So I went, yeah, of course. And I sat there. I was shaking because I felt like somebody was trying to prove something to me. So it was like a slap round the face, John. I can't even begin to tell you. It was shocking. So I went to see the director, whose name was Billy. And we're sitting there talking with Steve in the room as well. And Billy said, yeah, okay, then you got the right voice. We'll do that. We'll get you in as a radio presenter. As Steve told you what the film's about. So I said, no, I didn't know a title or anything. He said, it's called The Rapture, and it's about the second coming of Christ. It's like an English Da Vinci Code. So again, I went, whoa.
Wow.
I said, I've just been researching this for about 6 months. And him and Steve was always playing games between each other. And he looked at Steve and he went, you ain't going to get me this time. And he went, I swear to God, Bill, I've not said a word. So we ended up working on this film. And I went from being a voice in the radio in the background. And because I understood the Da Vinci Code and the works of art, he put me to being the presenter of track 2 on the DVD, which is it's like the behind the scenes footage where I was interviewing all the cast and crew and whatnot. So, and the film never did get released. So I'm on set. It's a night shoot, and we're in Basildon. Night shoot by a big rural barn that they were doing some religious piece of in. And I'm talking to a guy with me that I got to know quite well called Darren. He wanted everybody to call him Errol, but his real name was Darren. And I said, how did you get involved then, Darren? And he went, well, I knew Billy, and my agent said that this was coming up. So I went and read for Billy, and Billy gave me the part and all the rest of it. He said, how did you get involved? So I said, well, it's really weird, actually. I said, I have all this strange stuff going on around me. I said, I went to see a medium, and she told me I was going to be contacted. I said, it started when my best friend got murdered in the YMCA in Romford. And he went, stood back. So I went, you're right. And back of my head, I'm going, there's something not right about this. I don't know what it is, but he's got something to do with this. So he went, yeah, when was this? So I said, oh, it's like a couple of years ago now. What was his name, Mike? I said, it's Russell Aylett. And he went, Russ, Mike, I was in the room next to him. I'm the one that raised the alarm. He was in the room next to Russell, and I'm on a shoot with I just couldn't believe it. It was the weirdest time of my life ever. And again, I started shaking. I had to go and sit down because I thought someone's trying to prove something to me here. And then Lorraine in readings after that, she said, you've got a job to do. You've got to explain a very difficult subject, a very complicated subject in an easy to understand way. And that's all I could get out of it. But as I say, that was 17 years ago now. So, but it's all this has proved to me there's more going on than we can see.
Wow. So, what what purpose do you think that is? That message you had from Lorraine, you know, about the message you meant to give. What do you think that is? What you're doing now? Do you think?
Well, I don't really know, to be honest
You're
with
not
you, and
sure.
I'm going. I think I'm going blind. Um, I'm explaining the story to as many people as I can,
Yeah.
but what I have stumbled across in amongst all the research that I did, I started going into quantum physics, and I stumbled across the double slit experiment, which if you go onto YouTube and type in double slit experiment, it'll explain it in an easy to understand way. But that experiment proves, and they've done this thousands of times, it proves that reality isn't what we think it is. Now, over the years, I've noticed that we draw our conclusion on a spirit world of an afterlife on our understanding of reality. But when you go back and you look at the ancient Egyptians, at first glance, it looks like they're fascinated with the afterlife. But when you get into their culture and you understand them more, you realize that they're fascinated with consciousness, and they're saying the afterlife, because they had maps in the Egyptian books of the dead, but they used to put in with all the pharaohs. They had a map of what the king, the pharaoh, was going to go through to get into the afterlife. They had been there so many times during this ritual of the twice born that they realized that's reality, that is real. It's this that isn't quite right,
Mm.
and consciousness. I've starting with the double slit experiment. You get the understanding. If it doesn't shock you, then you haven't understood it properly.
Mm.
And it's a complicated subject, but I had to watch it about a dozen times before I started understanding it properly. Um, it's just shocking. Reality isn't what we think it is. So how can we look at the afterlife and say no? That's ridiculous. That's stupid, because we're drawing it on what we know about this. But this is
Yeah.
wrong. What we know is wrong.
Mm. I agree with that because how can I explain it? If you're up in, you call it heaven, the afterlife, your like vibration is up here.
Yeah,
When
totally.
you're like in on planet Earth, your vibration varies from right down, could be up here. You never to the heights that you are the afterlife, and it's like, cause you, it's like, oh, I can't remember. It's like you're almost trying to comprehend an afterlife through like the eyes of a child. You can't
Yeah.
fully grasp it. You haven't got the perspective to fully grasp it. But certain individuals have as time goes on, but most vast majority of people haven't got that thing to do it.
Well,
Um,
quantum physics is proving every day that we've been hoodwinked,
yeah.
which is a Masonic term. We've been hoodwinked. Um, it isn't reality. Isn't what we think it is, and they're still arguing about what it actually is. A lot of scientists are saying that it's a computer reality. It's a computer controlled, like the computer game The Sims.
Yeah.
I watched a video this morning of a very eminent scientist, and he said it's not like that. That's not like that. It isn't real, but it's not like that. Um, is it partially like that? He said, yeah, it could be. It could well be. So he's saying that it isn't what we think it is, but we know it's not that, or he knows it's not that. It's a very complicated subject,
Mm. I have to
because
look into that more.
the whole gist of it is that everything is made of atoms, everything. And for years and years and years, science and quantum physics couldn't understand why, if everything is made of atoms and an atom is 99% fresh air and 1% matter,
Mm.
why can't you put your hand through a table? Because all the atoms would just move. But
Mm.
it doesn't happen like that. The same way as it doesn't happen like that in a dream. In a dream, you only realize a dream is a dream when you wake up and look back. At the time, it feels real. If you fall off a building in a dream, you get that. You get woken up with the breathless feeling.
Yeah.
or you kick out because the football comes towards you, or you just jerk because you're dodging a bullet in this scene that you're in. But it's not real. And a lot of them are saying reality is actually like that. It's a dream-like existence, and that goes back to Plato and his allegory of the cave. Reality isn't what you think it is at all.
A lot of people say that a lot more these days than when I was younger.
Yeah,
I think through films like The Matrix making people think about things a bit more. But as you said about atoms, you can't put your hand through a table and stuff like that. But if you're energy, which we are, our beings are energy inside of us, then you could maybe put your hand through a wall through because you're part of it. You're like, you can just like do it. In theory, I'm theorizing this. Obviously, I haven't don't know that, but theorizing
right.
it. Yeah,
Energy is energy. It's all in. Everything is energy.
Yeah.
There was a great quote that I heard, and that's that everything. This is talking about reality now. Everything is thought. Everything is mind. Everything. So, and this is where there's certain books that have been printed telling people how to just materialize something in front of them. Well, it doesn't quite work like that. When you look into the subconscious mind, which is the reason that the Egyptians used to fish the brain out of the nose without disturbing the body. That's why they used to keep the body, so that the consciousness can't go back into that body because they've taken the subconscious out, and it can't go into another body because the body's intact. So that's mummification for you. But if you look at the subconscious mind, it's the brick walls that you live by for the rest of your life are set up between the ages of birth and 7 years old. They're the knee-jerk reactions. They are being set up as to, which is why children, around about 3 and 4 year old children, tend to know things about their previous relatives. They can pick them out of a photograph sometimes. I mean, my son, he was about 3 years old, and he started saying that he was in an aeroplane crash. And you get strange things. Anybody that's had children paid attention this much will see it. There's a lot more. I don't know whether it's psychic ability, because that part of the brain hasn't had the brick wall built. They haven't been told that's silly. You're making things up. So that brick wall in their mind isn't solid yet. But there's a lot of children that come forward and talk about their previous lives, and there's a huge amount of information about that. And near-death experiences as well. I've started researching those, and they are very, very eerily similar. All of them similar. You go through the life review, and this ties in with a guy called Graham Hancock, when he said, I mean, Graham Hancock, there's a religious brew in the not the southern states, it's around Mexico or the Mayan area, that called ayahuasca, and it contains dimethyltryptamine. That's the active ingredient, as does ecstasy and LSD. One of the most banned substances on earth, and it's not something anybody should be messing about with. I've never taken drugs. I don't agree with drugs in the slightest like that, but very, very, very strange chemical. It catapults you when you, again, there's loads of information on YouTube about people giving their experiences, relaying their experiences on DMT, and you're catapulted out of your body into this afterlife, which is exactly the same as the Egyptian kings done during the ritual of the twice born. But you discover things like the fleur-de-lis, for example. A fleur-de-lis is a particular shape. If you look at the Prince of Wales feathers, they're in the shape of a fleur-de-lis. The fleur-de-lis was mentioned during the Da Vinci Code as the Priory of Sion or something like that, their emblem. I've never come across that. But what I have come across is that fleur-de-lis shape goes back thousands and thousands and thousands of years. It's known as the mark of royalty. Now, fleur-de-lis stands for flower of the lily. It was the blue water lily of the Nile that's got green leaves in the same shape as a fleur-de-lis on hieroglyphs, the carvings on the Egyptian temples and what have you. And they used to take this and put it into wine and then drink the wine for an altered state of consciousness. Well, the fleur-de-lis contains quite a lot of DMT, dimethyltryptamine. Yeah, it's just also you look at this drug use in the Bible, and Moses and the burning bush doesn't make the slightest bit of sense until you understand that the bush was the acacia bush or the acacia tree. And the bark of this particular brand of tree doesn't, it burns, but the tree doesn't burn, which is exactly correct according to the biblical text. That's what he said, that it was burning, but the tree wasn't burning itself. When you breathe in the smoke of the bark, it contains, I think it was either 0.6 or 6% DMT. So Moses found who is a pharaoh, because there was, in biblical, Moses means sacred leader, basically. So that was a title, it wasn't a name. But that's why we can't find any archaeological evidence of him, because we're looking for Moses. There is no Moses. So when you understand he's been through this ritual of the twice born, he's found the bush, set fire to the bush, breathed in the smoke, and then in biblical text he heard the voice of God, which is exactly what everyone says when they've taken this DMT stuff. I've never touched it. I've never touched it. Never ever touched it, and I wouldn't want to. I was offered. Dr. David Luke in the University of Greenwich was doing a clinical trial on it once, and I contacted him and told him about the research and the book that I released, and he said that would I like to take part in the trial. He said you can use an assumed name, or you can do anything you want. Basically, they would give you just a small amount of it, and you relay your thoughts at the time of what you see after coming back off the trip. It was a 15-minute trip, and I couldn't go and do it. I wanted to, but you know, how can I do that? It would be a little bit bad of me to do that, because at the time I got a very young son, and I wouldn't want to put my wife in the position that she has to explain to my son, Daddy dribbles now. So, you know, I don't know. And this is my thought on all the drugs. I don't do that because I don't know how it's going to affect me.
Yeah. Something I remembered, something you said earlier. There's a book I read when I was very young, really sort of struck a chord in me, called You Cannot Die. I don't know if you've ever read that.
No, never read that one.
And at the end, throughout the whole book, it's talking about life after death, different sort of beliefs of it, different people, you know, going on about that. It's quite interesting all the way through. And towards the end of the book, it's a group of scientists who were fascinated with the afterlife, and they made a pact that they were going to try and communicate with each other if one of them died.
Yeah.
And I think this is at the early 20th century, I think it was. Now, it's quite a few years since I read it, so I could be slightly wrong there. But anyway, one of them died, and they had this device or something they were using to try and communicate with the dead, and he came through to them, and they communicated for over 20 years, back and forth.
Oh, really?
And at one of his very last messages, he said, they asked him, what is the meaning of life? And he said, everything is one. Everything is, there's no separate us. Everything is one, or something on that lines. And I've never forgotten it. I always wanted to get that book back to read it again. It was something on that lines. It's worth checking out if you can find that book now. I think it's on Amazon.
We are all separate streams of consciousness experiencing the world subjectively.
Yeah.
It's a dreamlike. This is my firm belief after 17 years. Everything is a dreamlike existence. You're put through certain tests.
Yeah.
To see how you would react. There is only one thing that's real, and that's love. Everything else is a lesson. Yeah. Love is the only thing that's real. I was another synchronistic event that happened to me. When I was going through all this, I spoke to another friend of mine, John, who's a medium, and his wife, Sue. They used to run, and they still do run, a little spiritualist church. So I used to go along to this and watch the mediums because I'm still not fully accepting this. This is after I've been going at this for a while now, and I've had all these experiences. And I'm watching the mediums. I'm going, there's got to be a pattern. There's got to be a link, a connection, some sort of route that they all go down to get the answers right. So I'm watching these mediums, loads of different mediums, and I'm going, I can't see. They're all different. They're all coming at this from a different angle. I can't see any link. It's like a magician doing its tricks. If you watch it long enough, you'll see how he does the trick. I couldn't see how any of this was happening. So I said to this, John, I'm interested in getting involved in some relaxation. He said, so I want to meditate. He went, oh, okay. I said, I need someone to teach me how to meditate. He went, okay, hang on. So can you fit Mike in on a Thursday night? She went, yeah, tell him to come down. So I went round their house every Thursday night, and I started, they would show me how to meditate, and you were saying what you saw when you came back. And I started hearing the word circle mentioned. So I'm thinking to myself, this is a bit weird. I don't know about this. I found out after 3 weeks that it was a spiritualist circle, and they were teaching me how to be a medium. Now, I ended up in this completely by accident, just because I wanted to be meditate. Yeah. So after what I've learned, I thought, no, let's just go with the flow and see what happens. So they done these little things, and I told them the answer, and it was right quite a few times. I'd done that, and I shocked myself. But you write that off as, no, it's just it's nothing. That's nonsense. It's, material side of my brain is still stepping forward, the conscious side, and dismissing what I'd just done. So one Thursday, Sue said, oh, we're off on an outing tonight. So I said, okay. And it was just me, John, and Sue. They'd cancelled everybody else. And she took me down to a little spiritualist church in Southend and said, right, you're going to give somebody a reading. I went, what are you doing to me? I can't do that. I don't know. I don't know any of this. She said, you can do it. I've seen you do it. You've done it around mine. I've seen you do it. So I'm going, and again, I just go with the flow. I went, yeah, all right then. Okay. All right, we'll do it. So in my head, I'm going, I'm going to make a right tit of myself here. I really am. So I got this gut feeling about one particular girl in the audience. She had red hair, and she was sitting right at the back on the right-hand side. So Sue said, have you got anything that you can tell us? So I said, yeah, go on. I said, that lady at the back there, they call this a fledgling night, and I didn't realise fledglings is mediums that they're bringing along onto the circuit. I said, the lady with the red hair at the back there, I said, I'm getting... Now, at this particular time, I didn't believe that when you died, your personality was part of this consciousness. I believe we were sent information to produce this reality, or to make us think we're in this reality, but I didn't think dead people were contacting us through that consciousness. I just thought that's the way it is, a signal, as Nikola Tesla found out. So I'm going, yeah, the lady at the back there, I said, I'm getting this picture, and I got this picture that was a little bit vivid and not really that clear, but I said, there's a guy laying on his side. I'll never forget this as long as I live. A guy laying on his side. I said, he's got a big grungy type jumper on. I said, his jeans, and as I'm saying this, the image is getting more and more vivid in my mind, which again, I just wrote off to, it's just a coincidence. I said, he's got big jeans on, not because it's the fashion, but because somebody gave them to him and he didn't have the money to buy a pair. So he's got a big jeans on and this great big belt that's pulling these jeans that are about 5 sizes too big in. I said, they're all gathered at the waist. I said, he's laying on his side. He died of a drugs overdose. I said, in front of him, I said, there's no syringes or anything. I said, but in front of him, there's little squares of silver foil, and there's a spoon, and there's a lighter. I said, I can't see any syringe there at all. I said, he's laying on a carpet with swirly patterns, and I can still see the pattern of the carpet even now. And this was, I'm going back a couple of years now. I said, and it was at the bottom of a bed with a brass top and bottom to it, like the bed that you see in Bed Knobs and Broomsticks, you know, the old-fashioned beds. I said, he's laying there. I said, it's a bed sit. It's a very small room. I said, he's just on his side and he's gone. And she's going, no, no, don't know any of that. No, no, no. Well, I felt like a right tit at that point in front of 40 people. I went, oh, all right. I said, I'll go and get me coat like this. And everyone just started laughing. So I sat down. I just dismissed it as my imagination making things up. Just before I walked away from it, though, the words come into my mind, don't you dare do this. And I knew I had to tell her that, but I didn't. I stopped short of that because I just felt really embarrassed, to be honest with you.
Mm.
So I sat down and they've had a cup of tea, and the girls come up to me when we were having a cup of tea, and Sue had gone away somewhere else. And she said, I'm really sorry, I didn't mean to close you down, which was really sweet of her. So I said, no, if it's not right, you've got to say no for everybody's sake. Otherwise, it makes it just a joke. I said, if it's not right, you say no. She went, it's really weird, though. Every medium I see tells me exactly the same picture. And I went, oh. So now I've changed my position. I've gone, oh, hang on a minute. Whatever they've done, these mediums have done, I have recreated it. And I never knew that they'd told her the same picture. So when I went, oh, okay, well, that's a bit strange. All right, then. So it went round to part 2, and Sue had got up and she spoke to some woman down here, some woman at the front over here. And then she said, I'm being drawn to the woman with red hair at the back again, like Mike was. She went, I'm seeing exactly the same picture. He's laying on his left-hand side, so-and-so, big baggy jumper, squares of foil. And I immediately, in my head, I went, oh, she's just doing that to make me feel better. She's doing that so I don't feel too embarrassed. I can see orbs on your camera, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, floating across in front of you.
Oh, I can't see. It's too small, my screen.
So I said, she's just doing that. In my head, I'm going, she's just doing that just to make me feel better. And then she went, he's telling me to tell you something. Don't you dare do this. And she repeated word for word. And I went, oh, I can't dismiss that. I can't dismiss that. So now I've changed my view on this. I believe we are all a stream of consciousness, which is your personality, your likes, your dislikes, and everything you are. And we join up with a global connection of everybody's stream of consciousness. And that stream of consciousness creates our reality. It's a bit complicated, isn't it?
Yeah, no, that makes total sense.
Yeah, so the more people, and there's other experiments, the 100th monkey experiment, which a lot of people say wasn't real, but a lot of people do say it was real. The global consciousness experiment that's being carried out today, and from 1985 to see if there is a global consciousness, and it's coming back that there is. That's in Princeton University, if anybody wants to look it up. But yeah, there's one big thick global consciousness, and we are all separate individual streams of it.
Yeah, for sure, definitely.
We are all one. Everybody's one. There is no color. There is no gender. There's nothing. Everything's fluid.
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't know if I can share this with you. I don't know if you something happened to me years ago to do with life after death. This is why I mention it. Like the Facebook. Is it through the Facebook group you contacted me through? Because I guess it was. Yeah. Anyway, in a group like that, or it might have been another one, that people always used to say to people who are grieving, and you should ask for signs and stuff like that. Now, my mother passed away in front of me when I was 17, long time ago, and obviously it was quite traumatic and what have you. It took me a long time before I could even talk about it. But go forward about 40 years almost. I was sitting in my kitchen, and I sort of had it in my head, I saw this post earlier saying, right, ask for a sign. So I thought, right, I'm going to ask for a sign. And the next thing, so I asked out loud for a sign for my mother. The next thing, I felt someone come over to me and hug me. And I was sitting in my chair, and it was like, whoa. It's like, what the hell? what was happening? But it was genuine. There was no one there, but I felt it. It was there. It happened. Yeah. And that night, it wasn't a clear but I communicated with my mother that evening. I communicated because I meditate and stuff. I actually communicated with her, but I couldn't do it very well back then. But now I've been told I'm a trainee medium now by a really good, high, really strong medium, and I'm a healer and stuff like that. So now that sort of stuff is happening more and more often, but I'm not going to go into that now. But I have communicated with a few people on the other side now. But it already started from that from that moment, really. Just asking for a sign, and poof, it happened.
Well, during the stage, I was seeing all these different mediums because I couldn't believe what Lorraine was saying. So I used to see a different two. Everybody was coming out with exactly the same thing.
Yeah,
So then I was going down. I wasn't fully sold on the idea then. I was going down the idea, well, hang on a minute. There must be some medium website somewhere where people are logging information about it. Do you know what I mean? I was getting that intense. I was looking for earpieces.
yeah,
I was going in under assumed names. At one point, I sent a friend of mine in, and he got told things about his friend that I was being told about me. I sent my girlfriend in, and she was told things about her boyfriend that I was being told about me. It was mental. This whole thing was mental, and I'm going at the end of it. I can't have this. I was totally dead set against it. When I'd done all this research, I decided to write a book. So I was sitting down. It's happened to me 3 times when I was writing the book. I went into writing mode. Yeah, okay, concentrating, looking, and I had the second bedroom when I lived in Romford. I had the second bedroom was like a nutty professor's room. There was pieces of paper all over the walls, and I was working out a timeline and a story to do with all the biblical texts that we've got today. And I was working out the real story behind these biblical texts, and they're very simple, very similar to what I told you about Moses and the burning bush.
yeah,
And I was, I had all these little bits. I'd read a sheet of A4, and one line in the middle made a lot of sense with something that I'd read over here. So I'd highlight the one line and stick that with blue tack, and it was all over the walls like a lunatic I was. And at one point, I'm putting this book together. I'm writing and reading. I'm reading a bit more about researching something to do with the Ark of the Covenant, and I'm researching this. Okay, yeah, okay. So it's like an X-ray, and then all of a sudden, I went. Do you know when you walk into a swimming pool and it's really cold and it's a hot day?
yeah,
And you're getting that round at the side of your belly button. It's too cold like that. That was the feeling. And the first time I went, stop, 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 stop. And it all went, stopped. So I went, well, that was weird. That's never happened before. I thought I was either going mad or I had something wrong with me.
yeah,
So I went and made a cup of coffee, and then I come back and I said, show me again, but slowly. And it was like pieces of a jigsaw, John. I saw these pieces of a jigsaw, which were the sheets of information, all laying down in an order. So I was writing down, and it went through everything, but it was a stream of information, the likes of which I've never experienced before. Or like the closest thing I can get to it, it was like a tsunami of words. And I couldn't pick out individual bits. 3 times that happened to me when I was writing this book, which, I mean, I used to sell it. It was originally called The Truth. But it's the book that I've put into a podcast now, and I've called it Water into Wine, because that is a metaphor. Nobody has ever turned physical water into physical wine. Same as nobody has ever walked on water. It doesn't, it's, physics don't allow that sort of thing. But they're metaphors.
yeah.
And
That
they
makes
mean
sense.
something else.
Yeah, this what I'm doing now with the YouTube channel and stuff like that. That was a calling. That was from the other side in 2016. Yeah, 2016. I started getting the idea. I only reminded about this because of a post I saw on Facebook today. I was getting an idea. I was lying in bed, it's like someone showed me a picture of me making videos. I thought, well, that's weird. I've never done this in my life. I can I can write songs, I can play music and stuff, but I've never done anything with videos, you know. And I kept seeing this every single night. I kept seeing this, and then it was like a light. I tried to go to sleep, I was tired, but a light bulb switched on my head. No, you got to look at this image now. And I was dreaming about me making videos, and this went on for a month. And eventually, I said to myself, right, if I get shown how to do this, I'll do it. And the best night's sleep I had for ages, brilliant night's sleep, 2 nights sleep. I thought, oh God, it's over now. My son comes up to see me, and little known to me, he was a YouTuber, and
Oh,
he
really?
showed me how to make my first video.
Oh,
And
really?
I made my first one a few months, about a week or so after, compilation video of different things, and it was such a relief. It was like, such a relief, and that's how it all started. And as I think I said on my Facebook post, I sort of went off direction, I think, over the years. But I've helped a lot of people as well because of the feedback I've had. People have said it's helped them in different ways. But now I'm going in this new direction, hence videos like this one, you know. But
Yeah.
again, this was a calling. Again, I was shown I had to do this, and it's every interview I do is it's different. Some people I'm actually healing them when I'm interviewing them. One
Yeah.
person was actually healing me when they were, and other one was it was awakening me towards my mediumship where I can do, and that's brought other events which I'm going to say about now. But over the weekend, everyone is different. So that's why I love it. This is like the best job in the world, you know, because it's like
Yeah.
really you just never know what's gonna happen when you speak to someone. You just don't know what they're gonna say. You don't know
Yeah.
how. It's just brilliant, you know.
I, a lot
Absolutely
of
love it.
something that has come to light with me. A lot of people leave school and they stop learning. They
Yeah,
don't want to learn anymore. That's so wrong. It's untrue. There
yeah.
is always something to learn. And I'm not saying you should look into history or look into how to repair a motorbike, but understanding who we actually are and why we're here doesn't come anywhere in anybody's mind.
Mm,
We've got an image of ourselves from the dark ages, and it hasn't changed. It has never
no.
changed since. We are so concentrating on this entertainment, work, entertainment, sleep, eat cycle,
Mm,
um, that we just push everything else by the wayside. We're supposed to learn about us. Zen riddles make a lot of sense. Buddhist Zen riddles make a lot of sense. There's a Zen riddle. If a tree falls in a forest and there's no one there to hear it, does it make any noise? Now, the obvious answer to
mm,
that, yeah, of course it does. It makes noise whether someone's there or not. But when you look into quantum physics, the real answer, the proper answer is no, it doesn't make any noise. Because if nobody's there to see it, the tree doesn't exist. Now I'm beginning to sound like the Matrix.
no, no. That
There's a
does make
line in the
sense.
Matrix with a spoon where a boy's bending a spoon. He said, "Don't try and spend the spoon. That's impossible." He said, "It's a joining of atoms."
Yeah.
And it is very similar to the Matrix. But the one thing that is sure, whether it's a computer program, software, or whatever that's creating this reality, one thing that is sure, it isn't real. Everybody agrees with that.
Mm. No, I agree with that as well. Yeah, I do. It's mm, it's food for thought, isn't it?
Oh yeah, there's so much. This is why I cut the Water into Wine podcast into 20-minute segments. It's mind blowing. It's ridiculously complicated. If you
Yeah.
look at the whole picture, when I used to sell insurance years and years ago, and they call this the ratchet theory of closing. If you
Mm,
look at a set of stairs, if it was one step, not many people would get upstairs. But what happens is you cut the one step down into little bite-sized chunks
mm,
that are achievable, and you can
yeah.
achieve each chunk. And before you realize it, you've looked back and you've climbed to the first floor. Well, I use that theory on the book. That's
Yeah.
why they're 20-minute chunks.
That's a good idea. Yeah. Perhaps you after off camera, and perhaps you could give me the links for these. I can put them in the video for people
Yeah,
if they want to see them.
of course I
I'd
can.
like
Yeah,
to watch them myself as well when I can. Well, right. Well, we've been talking for an hour. Do you to carry on, or do you want to stop here, or I don't know what
No,
you.
I think I've told you everything. Really, I brought you up to date. I've had a huge amount of synchronistic events, but we've explained that.
Yeah.
Um, just going through them would just be stamping on old ground, really, that we've already discussed. Um, and as of yet, I haven't had any other weird experiences. I've just ended up being this weird person that nobody really wants to talk to.
You would get on so well with a friend of mine. I interviewed him the other day, Roger Hanson, and he's an amazing guy. He doesn't realise how gifted he actually is. He's very guarded in his spirituality and stuff, but he's the sort of guy you learn from without realising you're learning from him.
Yeah,
I did an interview with him, and it was nearly an hour and a half, and he had suffered with he was addicted to drink and alcohol, drink and drugs years ago,
yeah,
and he came out of that, and he said one of his most things that he aims for in life is to remain teachable, and I thought
yeah,
that's such a
yeah,
magical sentence, and a few people have pointed that out, after the
yeah,
video, is his way forward. What he wants to do in life is to remain teachable, and I thought, well, that's so important, isn't it? Because you get these people, young kids out there. Oh, I know everything. Oh, what can you teach? I know it, and they don't know jack shit. Basically, do they? Or nothing.
yeah, yeah,
You know what I mean? And I just think, well, that's really. So he would, you and him would really, because he is fascinated about the. Hannah's looked into the ancient history and stuff as well, so
Mm.
he might be one you might want to speak to at some point as well. Might find him interesting.
People don't ask the word why anymore.
No,
They just accept. Oh, that's just that way. That's why. But why is it that way? You
yeah,
can I can walk you around a church, say, why is there? And I don't know if you can pick this up. Why is there that shape when you walk through the door above your head?
yeah,
Why has some churches got Christ on the cross and there's that shape above his head?
mm,
Why are there Star of Davids in a Christian church? Why is the spire inside a church shaped like that? Why do churches face east? Why do they do that? Why do you say amen at the end of a prayer? All these that all comes out in the podcast because it's all in the book that I was reading. But nobody asks. These are
no,
things that you just accept. That's the way that's the shape that is. But
true,
no,
yeah,
hang on, why? Why is it that shape? All churches virtually look the same.
mm,
Different designs, but they're the same pattern.
yeah,
Yeah, it's just at the Knights Templar when they found what they found under the mount in Jerusalem. A lot of people say that they found what's called the Holy Grail. Well, the phrase "the Holy Grail" came around in around about 1100s in the Knights Templar times.
mm,
Um, the Holy Grail, as far as I'm concerned, isn't a book. It came from a book.
right,
They're supposed to have found the lost Gospels of Jesus.
mm,
Now, Jesus was, according to most scholars, they believe he was one of the Essenes, which was one of the tribes at those nomadic tribes. The Essenes got their religious rituals and practices from ancient Egypt. They practiced the ritual of the twice born.
right,
So there was never anybody called Jesus. His name was Yeshua or Yashu, depending on the area that you went to.
mm,
The word Christ is not a name, it was a title. To be Christed means that you were rubbed with religious oils. And in Hebrew, the same word is Messiah. Every Egyptian king during the ritual of the twice born was rubbed with religious oils. It was part of the ceremony. So every king was a Christ. When you look
right,
at King Charles when he went through the coronation, they actually put oil on him
mm,
that's been blessed, religious oils. The Queen, they'd done the same thing to the Queen, bless her, and all the rest of it. When she was coronated, every Egyptian king
mm,
had the same thing. Fleur de lis, it's the mark of royalty. Everything took me back, all the way back to ancient Egypt. And once you understand their religious rites and rituals, everything falls into place.
what about the Ark of the Covenant then? Is it the Ark of, is the Ark of the Covenant? Yeah, have I got this? Have I said that right?
Yeah, Ark of the Covenant. Well,
Yeah.
the Ark of the Covenant. My a lot of people said it didn't exist, but there's so many texts written about it. I find it difficult to believe that it didn't exist. It was
Mm.
made of a 2.5 inch thick wood, which was shittim wood, which was the acacia tree they made it out of.
Yeah.
Is that acacia tree again? Um, it was covered. It was a battery, basically. That's the bottom line of it.
Yeah.
The way the Bible explains it was covered, it was insulated. Inside was insulated from outside. People were struck down, fingernails falling off. It was a certain type of radioactive material
Yeah.
that hair used to fall out. The priests used to wear this particular breastplate when they used to go in and pray, because only they were allowed to pray. They used to wash properly, put the robe on, and then they used to tie a rope around their foot. And they went into the Holy of Holies to pray to this thing. And if they passed out or fell over and got killed, they used to drag them out by by this rope.
God.
That's what the rope was for. There's a place in Ethiopia, modern day Ethiopia, because Ethiopia was a lot bigger, used to be a lot bigger than it is at the moment. It was virtually the whole of the African continent. But Ethiopia today is now a tiny little place. There's a place in Ethiopia called Axum, Axum. Axum is a very, very strange town. Obelisks everywhere, loads of Christian churches. In the pictures on the wall, that painted pictures that are 1,000, 2,000 years old, whatever, the Mary, the mother of Christ, is black, and Christ is black. That agrees with a biblical text. I can't remember where it was at the moment. I should get these things ready, where it describes that Christ, it goes through the description of what he looks like, and he's got, let me try to get this right. His feet were the color of bronze, burnt bronze, which he's black. He was black. He was never blonde haired, blue eyed, and white. Never. He was always black. And in every single one of the churches, they've got the Ark of the Covenant. There's also another place that's surrounded with a fence and barbed wire that is supposed to be where the Ark of the Covenant actually is today. Nobody can get into this place. There's one priest that looks after it. If anybody's interested in this, go and look at Graham Hancock. He's got a video on YouTube where he actually approaches this small compound. It's only just a square building, tiny little square building. And when priests die, they've got cataracts, which is an effect from a radioactive material. So he says. And I believe him. He's a very intelligent man, used to be a journalist. So once one priest dies, they put one more priest in there, and that's it. They're the only person that's allowed to go in there. Nobody else is allowed in it. But the cataracts are a very strange thing. They all start getting cataracts.
So what do you think the radioactive material is then in it? Have you any theories on that?
I don't know. I mean, granite, you look at granite is slightly radioactive,
Right.
which is what the pyramid is internally. It's lined. Red granite, I believe it is. I'd have to check my notes to find out exactly what it is, but it's lined with the granite because it's slightly radioactive. So, we have got radioactive stuff around us, and I dare say you could dig it up and it would be radioactive. But the thing with radioactive waste is it just doesn't stop. When you look at Chernobyl, certain parts of Chernobyl, people still can't go into the area.
Yeah.
You can't go anywhere near it. And that was what? How long ago was that? Was it 40 years ago that was?
Could be now, yeah. God.
A
40
long
years.
while.
When you're my age, you think like 20 years ago is 1980, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's 2000 now. No?
Yeah, that's right. I'm the same. Exactly the same.
So there we are. I'm going to wrap it up here, and that was really amazing. I really enjoyed that. maybe we could talk again if we
Yeah,
find something. I'll watch some of your podcasts and maybe I'll get an idea for something I want to talk to you about. Well, I'll message you, again about that then.
I would love to come on again.
Okay, then I'm going to wrap it up here then. Wow, that was really good. Very interesting. Till next time, I bid you all bye for now. Cheers, Michael. Thank you very much.
Bye.